Greetings aspirants, welcome to Narayana IAS. This is Karthik Moni, I'm here for Daily News Analysis. For today's session, I have picked up 5 important articles. The first article is regarding the recent Supreme Court order regarding the Bilkis Banu case. And second article is taken from the Hindu, that is debating the India's new hit and run law. So as of now, we are having new changes in the BNS 2023 bill. So that attracts huge opposition from the transporters and drivers. So that we are going to discuss. And third article is taken from the Hindu, that is about understanding the European Union's carbon border taxation. And fourth article is about the superconductivity, that is also taken from the Hindu science column. And finally, we are going to discuss about the Aditya L1 mission that was taken from the Indian Express explained column. Coming to the first article, we are going to discuss about the recent Supreme Court verdicts on Bilkis Banu case. So exam point of view, the two prelims point of view, we have to know about the remission provisions. And apart from that, mains point of view, we have to know the substantial questions involved in this particular case, right? So coming to the context, recently the Supreme Court has struck down the remission granted by the Gujarat government. So here, in the particular case, Bilkis Banu case, so 11 members were convicted. So recently in 2022, one of the convicts approached the government for the remission. So this was considered by the Gujarat government, and now this remission granted by the Gujarat government was struck down by the Supreme Court. So this is the context of this article. From this context, we have to know about the historical background, and also we have to know about the issues involved. And also we have to know about the order given by the Supreme Court. So coming to the case, Bilkis Banu case. So in 2002, Godhra riots in Gujarat, the Bilkis Banu was raped and her entire family was killed in front of her eyes itself. So this is the crime. So seeing the gravity of the issue, gravity of the crime, so National Human Rights Commission and Supreme Court intervened into this picture, and they transferred the case to Mumbai, right? Saying that there is a possibility of partiality and political intervention into the case, and they transferred the trial to Gujarat to Mumbai, right? In January 2008, the Mumbai CBI court sentenced 11 accused to the life in prison. So here I have to highlight that even though the gravity of the crime is very high, even though there is a possibility of seeing this crime as rarest of the rare cases to award death sentence, here the High Court, that is CBI court, awarded only the life imprisonment rather than the death penalty. Right? This is one of the important aspects that we have to see. And apart from that, recently in 2022, one of the convicts approached the court for the remission, and this petition was transferred to the Gujarat government, and Gujarat government released all 11 on August 15 based on the 1992 remission policy. Then Bilkis Banu appealed this particular issue, and also as a result, the Supreme Court involved into this picture and struck down the remission granted by the Gujarat. So this is the overall, the background, a brief history of this particular case, right? So now we have to know about the Supreme Court order. It highlighted two things. Substantially, as a government, as a society, we have to respect the women. So women deserve respect, irrespective of belonging to any creed or religion. So women has to be respected. So that is the fundamental idea projected and highlighted in the particular order. And apart from that, they mentioned about the jurisdictional issues. It mentioned that Gujarat was not an appropriate government to remit the convicts. So this was the justification given in the order to overturn the remission given by the Gujarat. So now we have to know about the issues. The first and foremost aspect is procedural lapses. So here, whenever we are considering the remission policy, the conduct of the particular convict has to be given by the prisoners. So that was not conducted properly. Apart from that, it is the duty of the state to ensure that there is no further possibility of committing crime if you are releasing the convicts. So these two aspects was not considered properly. So in this aspect, there is a procedural lapse from the executive's point of view. Apart from that, there is a gross violation of justice. Yes, here there is a violation of justice is perceptible because seeing the issue, the gravity of the crime, it can be considered as rarest of the rare cases to award death sentence, right? So here in this aspect, if you are remitting the convict beforehand, then which means there is a gross violation of justice. So that is the second dimension that we have to know. And also, final dimension, there is a violation of rule of law and equity, right? So here, in order to establish or in order to ascertain the rule of law, the functioning or correct functioning of the executives are very much needed. Here, there is a procedural lapse involved in the functioning of executives, which means the rule of law is getting affected, which means some section is getting privileged to bypass the law. So in this aspect, rule of law as well as equality is getting affected, which are protected under Article 14 of Indian Constitution. So next we have an article related to the hit and run provision, the recent provision that was included into the BNS legislation. So exam point of view, we have to know about the section 106(2) of BNS. So the provision, the actual factual details that we have to know. Apart from that, we have to know about the pros and cons of the particular legislation. And finally, it is better to relate the same with the increasing number of road accidents. How it can be related, that has to be known. So this is the context, that is the UPSC relevance of this particular article. Coming to the context, recently the Union Parliament came up with the new 3 legislations to replace the existing criminal laws in India. So within that, they included one particular section, that is section 106(2) within the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita Bill 2023. So in that, there is a provision that it imposes 10 years of jail and fine for the offence of fleeing an accident scene, not reporting it to the police or magistrate. Which means, if someone, a driver, is fleeing away from the particular accident scene without reporting, then they used to attract 10 years of jail or fine. So this provision was widely opposed by the transporters and the commercial drivers because it is the punishment itself very high, seeing in the gravity and seeing the underlying factors for the accidents in India. This punishment is very high, right? So from this context, we have to know about the previous provisions and also the current provisions, and also we have to know that why the transporters or drivers are opposing this provision, and also we have to know that why the government is bringing up this provision to contain the existing problem or existing issue of increasing road accidents, right? So now we have to know about the provisions. So previously in the IPC, also we have a hit and run as a crime. So we have section 304A under IPC, which attracts 2 years of jail term, whereas now we are having a section 106(2) under BNS bill. In this, we used to have 10 years of jail terms and also possibility of having fine up to 7 lakh. So look at the number, 2 years previously and now 10 years of jail terms. So this is the problem, this is the concern put forward by the transporters and drivers, that the proportionality of the imprisonment is comparatively very high. So now we have to know about the concerns raised by the protesters. The one dimension is that the magnitude of the punishment, and also second dimension is that the factors related are not related to the driver, and finally the concern of mob violence, right? The first aspect is that the magnitude of with respect to the crime committed, the consequent punishment is very high. So that is the problem. Even this is same for the accidents which are unintentional. So that is the first concern raised by the protester. And second dimension is that the factors. So here the underlying assumptions that the factors which are related are not related to the drivers are not considered while legislation. So here there are many other factors such as the poor visibility due to fog, or the poor road conditions can also be a reason for the accident. So that is there. And apart from that, we have to sensitize the problem of challenging work conditions of the drivers. And finally, and most importantly, that too, in the case of hit and run, the most of the hit and run cases are happening because of the fear of getting thrashed by the mob. So this has to be understood before legislation. So these are the concerns put forward by the drivers. So now we have to know why the government is defending this provision. So for that we have to look into the actual data. So National Crime Record Bureau, according to this report, that too in 2022, 47,000 hit and run cases are registered, and out of which around 50,000 people are getting died because of these crashes. And that too, even though India is accounting 1% of the total world vehicles, we account around 10% of the deaths related to the vehicle crashes. So proportionally, it is not matched. So that is the problem. And also, when it comes to the justification, so we are having two provisions, that is 106.1 and 106.2 of BNS. So the 106.1 applies that to the rash and negligent driving, where if the driver reports the matter to the police, they shall incur the punishment of 5 years with the fine. Whereas 106.2, if a driver fails to report the matter and escapes, they will be imprisoned for up to 10 years. So here, the underlying assumption is that there is a positive correlation. There is a possibility that this provision can increasing the reporting of the accidents, and in this aspect, the death related to the accidents can be minimized. So this is the underlying assumption, but there is an issue with the underlying assumption itself, right? So that is the problem. So coming to the other issues, so there is an issue with the equality as well, because there is an exception under this section itself. Under 106.1, the doctors in the event of rash and negligent acts, where the imprisonment will be up to 2 years with the fine. So this classification of excluding or having a reduced punishment to the doctors itself a problem, because it is going against the principle of equality, that there is no rationale in differentiating the liability between two different classes. So that we have to understand, right? So now we have to know about the way forward. So first aspect is that hit and run or hit and rash driving and negligence driving must be separated. So hit and run is separate, and then rash and negligent driving is separate. So here we are looking forward a legislation to differentiate between these two is very important, and putting those two into one single legislation is not at all advisable. So that is the first expectation. And second aspect is that while legislating any provisions or while bringing any sections, we have to consider the other associate factors such as behavior of the commuters, road conditions, lightning on the road, and other similar factors. Because the accident and mortalities because of such accident is possible because of all other factors as well. For example, commuter. Yes, commuter is also very important. So that too, we are facing more number of mortalities in highways and national highways and state highways. This can be directly correlated with the behaviors of commuters. And apart from that, in the other roadways, we can relate the problem of road conditions. So that is also there. So whenever we are considering or enacting any provisions or bringing up any legislation, we have to consider such factors which are not related to the drivers. So that is very important. And finally, the blanket 10 years imprisonment for all the cases is also a problem. So for that, what we have to do is we have to categorize the issues based on the gravity of the crime. So that segregation is very much important. And finally, we also have to exclude the exemptions. For example, we are having the exemption of doctor that has to be removed. So doctor exemption has to be removed. And also, we have to differentiate between the hit and run case of death-related issues and also the normal minor injuries. So those two has to be clearly differentiated. Otherwise, this provision can be used as a tool to harass the drivers. So that is possible. And finally, instead of imprisonment, we can also think from the alternate punishments such as community services, revocation of driving licenses, and mandatory driving retest can be a possible alternative rather than having a such rigorous imprisonment. So next we have an article related to the European Union carbon border taxation. So this article is taken from the Hindu editorial. So exam point of view, it is very important. We can expect both prelims as well as mains questions, because in the prelims examination we can expect factual detail, or even we can expect some conceptual question in the prelims examination, whereas in the mains examination we can expect some questions related to the challenges or concerns for India of implementing this carbon border adjustment mechanism, right? Coming to the context, recently the Piyush Goyal expressed concern that implementation of this carbon taxation will potentially impact the European Union's manufacturing sector. No, but actually it will not impact the European Union's manufacturing sector. It actually impacts India, because as of now, India is in the nascent stage in terms of carbon taxation or carbon credit or carbon valuation as a mechanism. And also, India is one of the countries which is exporting more to the European Union, especially in terms of iron, steel, cement and aluminium and all. So in this aspect, India's the income will get affected because of this carbon adjustment mechanism, right? So from this context, we have to know about what is meant by this carbon border adjustment mechanism, and also we have to know how it will impact India, right? So first we have to know about what is meant by carbon border adjustment mechanism. So in 2020, the European Union came up with the aspirational goal or aspirational document called European Green Deal. Under this aspiration, the European Union wanted to become a carbon or climate neutral by 2050. So that is the long-term aspiration. And apart from that, they are also having a medium-term aspiration that by 2030, the greenhouse gas emission has to be reduced to 55% of 1990. So these are the two major aspirations under the European Green Deal, right? They wanted to reduce the emission, right? So they started taking measures to reduce the emission. So what they did is that the first thing, they came up with the mechanism or stringent provision to reduce the emission in the European Union countries itself. So under this, the industries which are in the European Union countries have to reduce the emission to the prescribed limit as it is given in the European Union emission trading mechanism, right? So stringent mechanism, the threshold limit for emission was set within the European Union. But there is a problem that, so when they are shifting to new mechanism, new way of creating or producing the goods, the countries or the industries are in need to spend more, which means moving towards the cleaner production, the industries are in need of more resources. They will be in need pushed to spend more for cleaner technologies. So that will be the case. In this aspect, the competitive advantage of the cost of particular good will get affected. So as a mechanism, as a escape mechanism, the industry started importing goods from the other nations, that is non-European Union nations. So here there is a problem of carbon leakage. So here, in order to address this carbon leakage, because in the non-European Union countries, the mechanism will not be that stringent, the emission will be very high. So in this aspect, the carbon leakage is possible because of importing such carbon intensive goods from the other nations. So in order to control this problem, the European Union came up with a mechanism called carbon border adjustment mechanism. Yes, as an industry, you can import from any nations, but while doing the import, you have to pay the excess amount that is required under carbon border adjustment mechanism. For example, if the prescribed limit is 50 units, right? Whereas the industry which is producing the iron or steel or aluminium emitted around 80 units in its source region, then the importer have to pay the amount for the excess 30 units of carbon emission. Right? This is what we call it as carbon border adjustment mechanism. So as of now, this carbon border adjustment mechanism is applicable only to 6 carbon intensive products such as aluminium, iron and steel, fertilizers. So now we have to know about the India's position. So when it comes to the India's position, India is in the nascent stage. So now only that to December 2022, we came up with some initiative, right? So Ministry of Power came up with the carbon credit trading system in 2022 December. Though we introduced this provision, we not yet operationalized this system because still we are facing problem in finding the right way for the carbon valuation. Similarly, in 2023, Ministry of Environment came up with another concept called Green Credit Program rules. So still India is working on, now only India is working on such carbon offset or carbon trading mechanism. So valuation, we are still facing the problem in terms of valuation. So that is the idea. So in terms of the export to European Union, so please pay attention to the number. We are exporting around 27%, right? The 27% of the iron, steel and aluminium is going to European Union. So this number is very huge because the extent of import which is going to face this carbon border adjustment mechanism is very high, which means the revenue impact on India is comparatively very high. So look at the number. There is a possibility, as per the UN CTAT report, India might lose $1 to $1.7 billion because of this intervention, right? So apart from that, yes, the transition is a problem because now only we are including or introducing such concepts. So valuation issue will be there. So in this aspect, during the transition period, there is a possibility of double counting will also be there. And also, there is a concept called common but differentiated responsibility. So here, the European Union is treating both the developed countries and developing countries equally, which means it is going against the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. Substantially, this is also a fundamental issue for India, that India is not getting enough carbon space for its development. That is very important from the concept or substantial point of view. And finally, fund to the origin state. Yes, the fund which is collected because of this carbon border adjustment mechanism is retained by the European Union, which means the fund is not available for the developing countries. In actual pollution is happening, the conversion of the technology, the fund available for the conversion of technology is not available for the developing countries. This is also one very important concern of this carbon border adjustment mechanism. So India, as a developing country who is aspiring to export more, have to come up with the standard procedures in near future. That is also there. And apart from that, as a global arena, so the global nations have to come up with the alternative mechanism to address the problems in the carbon border adjustment mechanism. Next, we have an article related to the superconductors. So exam point of view, we have to know about the conceptual understanding behind the superconductors, and also we have to know about the Meissner effect. This effect was particularly mentioned in this article. So even we can expect this particular effect in the examination. So prelims point of view, this article is very important. That's why we are discussing this article. Coming to the context, the LK99. So initially, it was known as a room temperature superconductor. It was celebrated, but later, because of some data issue, it was widely criticized. And now a recent study rekindled that there is a possibility of room temperature superconductivity is possible with this LK99. This study was done by the Chinese experts. So now a second chance to know about this room temperature superconductor is there. So this is the context of this article. So from this article, we have to know about what is meant by superconductivity, and also why this particular LK99 is very important, why this attracts much public attention, And also we have to know about the Messner effect for the exam point of view. So coming to the superconductivity, so I want to highlight a word, resistance. Yes. So whenever there is a flow of electricity in a normal conductor, there is the loss of energy, loss of electricity which used to happen because of the resistance, right? So the electric currents formed because of the movement of the particles such as electrons faces resistance, and energy losses due to the collision and interaction within the atom often results in heat. This is perceptible in the normal day-to-day life. So whenever we are using the electronic gadgets, we used to have heat energy, and this heat energy is produced because of the resistance which in the conductor. So this is very much evident in the normal day-to-day life. Now coming to the condition of superconductivity, so it is exactly opposite. If there is a zero resistance and zero loss of energy because of the electricity, then this particular condition is what we call it as superconductivity. The material which used to conduct electricity with a zero resistance is what we call it as superconductors. Yes, the application point of view is very important because it is having the inbuilt potential for a wide variety of applications in many sectors. So it can have a transitional disruptive impact in many sectors. That's why we are looking for such semiconductor technology. So coming to the examples, there are many examples. Yttrium, barium, copper oxide, YbCO, and bismuth, strontium, calcium, copper oxide, BsCCO. And also we are having the examples of lead, niobium, titanium, and aluminum and tin, etc. So here, so there are many examples, but now this LK99 is very important because the so-called existing examples of superconductor used to work in very low temperature at very high pressure. So that is the condition of the existing semiconductors, so functioning of semiconductor, which means it is very difficult to utilize for the normal application purposes. Yes, theoretically, laboratory-wise, experiment-wise, it is okay, superconductivity is possible, but we need a material or metal which exhibits such a property in a room temperature. Then only it can be useful for the normal practical purposes. So here LK99, that is copper substituted lead apatite, it is identified in the name of room temperature, that is room temperature and pressure, RTP superconductor. So which means this particular metal compound or metallic compound is having a capacity to have superconductivity at the room temperature and pressure itself. So that's why this particular metallic compound got wide attraction in the global area. So now the recent experiment shows that it exhibit near room temperature and pressure superconductivity, and also it is showing the Messner effect at the critical temperature by using this hysteresis experiment. So this new findings paved a new way for this semiconductor, that is LK99. So here, exam point of view, we have to know about what is meant by Messner effect. So it is nothing but the expulsion of the magnetic field lines away from the material, right? Look at this diagram. So here in the case, the first diagram, the magnetic field lines are passing inside the material, whereas in the second diagram, the magnetic field lines are moving away from the material, that is moving outside or moving on the surface of the material. So here, this expulsion of the magnetic field lines is seen as a sign of superconductivity. Whenever there is a material which exhibits this property, that is expulsion of magnetic field lines away from the material, then this particular material can be considered as superconductors. So here also LK99 exhibit this property. This is what we call it as Messner's effect. So here there is a problem. So whenever there is an increase in the magnetic field intensity, there is a possibility that the one point of time, that is after saturation, the magnetic field lines can come inside the body, right? So for that they conducted hysteresis experiments. So here hysteresis means try to relate it with the lag. For example, if we apply the accelerator, the increase in the pace of the vehicle is possible with a little bit of time lag. Similarly, like if you are reducing the throttle, there is a possibility that the reduction in the pace of the vehicle will happen with some time delay. So here also, the hysteresis experiment talks about the lag. For example, if you are increasing the magnetic field intensity, the expulsion of the magnetic fields is possible, but after one point of time, after saturation, this magnetic flux can come inside the material. Here what they'll do, they'll reduce the, after the saturation point, they'll try to reduce. But the possible reduction will not be there because of the lag. So here what they'll do, increasing and decreasing. This is what they meant by the word hysteresis experiment or hysteresis loop. So by using this hysteresis loop, they will maintain the Messiness effect, which means expulsion of the magnetic field lines. In this aspect, this LK99 is exhibiting the superconducting property. So next we have an article related to the Aditya L1 mission. As the title itself suggests, seeking a clear view of sun, why does Aditya needs to be placed at L1? This is the prime area that we are going to discuss it today. So exam point of view, UPSC relevance, we have to know about the entire details about the missions. So we have to know about what is the payload and how it used to function, why L1. So all the details we have to know. So we can expect some question either in terms of prelims as well as mains in the upcoming examination. So that's why we are discussing this article. Previously in 2017, there was a question related to the obstacles for India's manned space mission, both in terms of technology and also logistics. So space related questions, the two analytical questions are possible in the mains examination, and factual question is possible in the prelims examination. So we have to pay more attention to this Aditya L1 mission, right? So coming to the context, recently, that is 4 months before, the Aditya L1 spacecraft was launched from the Earth, and now this particular aircraft enter into the halo orbit around L1 point, that is 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth. So this is the context of this article. The main objective of this mission is to study the solar atmosphere, that is corona, and also we have to know, or we have to study the charged particles in the solar winds. So because these solar winds are the corona itself having a capacity to create disruptions in the space. So for that aspect, we have to know about the solar winds, the plasma, charged particles, and also the characteristics of corona at the larger point of view. So this is the context of this article. So from this context, you have to know about the Lagrange point L1, right? So first we have to know about the Lagrange points. So Lagrange points are nothing but the positions in the space. Yes, favorable positions in the space between two major celestial bodies. So we are considering this as a two celestial body system. So here, in relation to these two celestial bodies, we have to place one satellite, right? So here, placing a satellite, there is a problem that the gravitational pull of any of these two celestial bodies can have an impact on the satellite, and in this aspect, the satellite can be deflected because of the gravitational activity. So we need some favorable positions in which the gravitational pull of both the bodies is getting balanced to each other. So these are the favorable position in the space where gravitational force of the two massive orbits balancing each other, right? So here we want to find a place relative to these celestial bodies in which this position cannot be disturbed by the gravitational pull of other two bodies. So this is what we call it as Lagrangian. So with respect to any two celestial bodies, for example, if you are considering Earth and Sun, then we used to have 5. Any two bodies, we used to have 5 points. So for example, consider this is Sun, this is Earth. So here between Sun and Earth, we have L1, Lagrange point 1, and behind Earth, we used to have L2, Lagrangian point 2. So behind the Sun, that is Lagrange point 3, and here L4 and L5 is there. So L4 and L5 are in an angular fashion, whereas L1, L2, L3 are in a collinear fashion. So L1, L2, L3 are collinear Lagrange points, whereas L4 and L5 are non-collinear Lagrange points. So these are some of the 5 areas or positions in the space related to two celestial bodies to have the favorable positions, right? So between any two body, we have 5 Lagrange points. Now we have to know about why this Aditya L1 is placed in the L1 point rather than L2 or L3 or L4 or L5, right? So apart from other 4, why we placed in L1, right? So that we have to know. So here first objective is that, so if you are placing Aditya into L1 point, there is no obstruction. The clear view of Sun is possible. For example, this is Earth, this is Sun. So if you are placing the satellite in the L1, the clear visibility of the Sun is possible, right? This is the first idea. Second dimension is that, so here the objective of this mission is to study the corona, and also the objective is to study the plasma. So plasma used to contain the charged particles, right? So what they'll do, if we are facing any problem with respect to solar wind, the particular Aditya mission will observe those possible disruptions beforehand, and it will send the information to the Sun. So placing in front of the Earth, we can able to assess the possible disruption beforehand. So that is the second dimension. Third dimension is, it is near to the Earth. So near to the Earth, we have 2 positions. One is L1 and L2. So both of them are in 1.5 million kilometers. Yes, one is in between Sun and the Earth. Another one is, that is L2 is behind the Earth. So we are choosing L1 because it is very near to the Earth, right? Now there will be a question that why can't we used to have such a observatory mission in the Earth itself? The problem is that the corona used to emit radiation in the form of X-rays. So there is a problem that the X-rays will get filtered in the Earth's atmosphere. So we won't get X-rays get penetrated into the Earth. So that's why, in order to image the Sun, or in order to identify or study the corona, we need space-based satellites. Now let's try some of the prelims practice questions. So first question is related to the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So option A, to subsidize the European Union's manufacturers. No, it is not to subsidize. Second, option B, for enforcing the complete ban. No, it is not about the complete ban. This is also wrong. Option C, in order to prevent the carbon leakage. Yes, it is right. By aligning the carbon cost of imports with that of domestic production. Yes, it is right. So we are going with the option C. So option D, to voluntarily collaborate with non-European Union countries in reducing the... No, it is a very generic statement. No, it is wrong. So we are going with the option C. So correct answer is C. Yes, right. So coming to the second question, we are having a question related to graphene. So this question has to be related with the semiconductors, because graphene is also one of the most important conductor. It is not a semiconductor. It is a most important conductor, right? So it is a 2-dimensional material and has good electrical conductivity. Yes, it is right. It is one of the thinnest but strongest material tested so far. Yes, second statement is also right. It is entirely made of, it is not silicon, it is made of carbon, right? So third statement is wrong. It is used as a conducting electrodes required for touchscreens, LCDs and OLEDs. Yes, it is right. So option 1, 2 and 4 is right. So we are going with the option C, 1, 2 and 4 only. Yes, option C is right. So coming to the third question. So we are having a statements related to the Motor Vehicle Amendment Fund. So Motor Vehicle Amendment Fund under Motor Vehicle Act 2019 allocates fund for the medical treatment of individuals injured in the road accidents. Yes, it is true. M-Parivahan is a citizen-centric app which will offers the facility for searching and establishing the genuineness of a vehicle and driver. So here we are going to see this. We added this question as an extension of the previous hit and run case provision in the BNS. So here both the statements are correct. So we are going with the option C. So answer C is right. So coming to the fourth question, Aditya L1 is placed exactly at the Lagrangian point L1 since it allows Aditya to remain at the same position between the sun and the earth. So here you have to understand one thing. So Aditya L1 is not located exactly at Lagrange point L1. For example, this is sun, this is earth. So here we are having L1. But Aditya L1 is not exactly at the Lagrange point 1. Instead, it is rotating or orbiting around the Lagrange point. It is orbiting like this. So first statement is wrong. Second statement, the key objective of L1 mission is to study the solar atmosphere. No, it is not about solar atmosphere. It is about the corona and the plasma emitted because of the solar wind. So second statement is also wrong. Which of the above statement are correct? So option is Delhi. We are going with the option Delhi. Yes, option D is correct. Coming to the last prelims question. Only the president has the power to pardon the person convicted with the death sentence. Yes. So apart from the death sentence, the governor can pardon any other sentence, not the death sentence. So first statement is correct. Second statement, the decision taken by the president with regards to the extending pardon power cannot be subject to judicial review. No, this is wrong. It can be questioned under the judicial review. It is possible. So second statement is wrong. So choose the correct option from the following. So here the statement 1 is correct. So we are going with the option A. Yes, option A is right. So now let's try one mains question. So here analyze the implication of recent amendments to the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita bill, particularly focusing on revised provisions related to the hit and run portion. So implications, one dimension. So critically evaluate how these amendments align with the principle of justice and equity. So this is the second dimension, and assess the potential impacts. I think both of them are same. So we have to assess and analyze the implications or impacts. So we can take it as a two-part question. So try to give equal weightage to both the dimensions. So here is the approach. So first start with the introduction. Try to compare the recent provision of Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, that is hits and run provision. So try to compare with IPC. So in IPC we used to have 2 years of jail term, and now we used to have 10 years of jail term. So compare the provisions in the previous legislation and the current legislation. Then start with the analysis part. So here we want to do the critical analysis of how it affects the justice. So first we have to think from the principle of justice. Here this has to be equated with the extent of punishment. So here the punishment, irrespective of the gravity of the crime, the punishment is so high. So that we have to highlight. And apart from that equity aspect, the irrational differentiation we have to highlight. So try to make a critical note on that. We are having the irrational differentiation of excluding doctors. So that we have to highlight. And finally, when it comes to the impact to the victim, try to relate with the accidental death. There is a possibility of reduction in death, that is possible, because the immediate and timely care is possible, because this is what the section is meant for. And also we can think from the legal aspect, the possibility of increasing the complexity of litigations, that is possible, so that increase in litigation is also possible. And finally, this has to be seen as a tool of harassment. For the perpetuator's point of view, this can be seen as a tool of harassment because the gravity of the punishment is very high. So this can be used by the government agencies against the drivers, that is possible. Finally, as a conclusion, try to highlight the need for differentiation between the based on the gravity of the crime, that is also needed, and also between the crime, that is the hit and run, that is one aspect, and also rash and negligent driving, that is also another aspect. And finally, need to sensitize the factors which is not related to the drivers. So while doing the legislation, try to highlight that need for sensitizing the factors which are not directly related to the drivers. This is also in need of her. So that's the end of the session. Thanks for watching. Please do like, share, and comment the video, and don't forget to subscribe our channel. And thanks for watching.